Hey everybody, it's Jessica Coulter, CEO and founder of Ace Cookie Tutoring. Today we're going to be talking about the 3 people your kid can blame for his grades and who he should be blaming, who he shouldn't be blaming, and what to do about it. And the reason we're talking about this, guys, is because this comes down to motivation. The whole idea of who's to blame, what to do about it, how we're going to fix it, all of those things. Those are all related to motivation and the motivation interview series I have happening right now during this weekend. So if you didn't catch the interviews the first time around, there's a replay weekend happening now. You can sign up to watch these 18 awesome interviews from these 18 motivation experts just by clicking the button in the description, signing up. So I want you guys to do that, and I want your kid to know who to blame, who not to blame. So the first choice is the teacher. Maybe the teacher is just not teaching your kid. Maybe the teacher is grading unfairly. Maybe your child is just not learning from him. Maybe your child is, just not having a good relationship with that teacher. So that is the very first option. That might be when you say, hey, whatever your kid's name is, why aren't you doing well in math? Or why is your science grade not an A? Or why are you not even passing gym? Whatever questions you're asking your kid, he might say, well, the teacher's the problem. Well, what are you going to do about that? What can your kid do about it? Well, the first question that I suggest your kid asks, and then you ask your kid is, is it the material or is it the teacher? Because your kid can decide, I'm not good at math class, and just automatically decide that teacher's a bad teacher. Or maybe your kid just doesn't like the way that teacher treats him. Because some teachers have favorites. Unfortunately, that is true. That is a thing. But other times it just comes down to your teacher and your child, your kid's child. Wow. Your child's teacher. Do they just don't have a good relationship? And sometimes it just takes a matter of talking, getting to know each other a little better, make sure your kid knows what that teacher expects, and make sure that they have some way of talking to each other. So that is my first piece of advice. My first thing I want to bring up in this video is do know your kid might blame a teacher. And yes, there are some teachers out there that aren't very fair, that have favorites. But if that's not the case, then see what your kid can do about it. See what kind of talking can happen. And I would tell your kid, don't jump to those conclusions until you've given that teacher a chance. Gone through whatever channels need to be gone through, because, it could be as simple as your kid just doesn't understand expectations, or the teacher doesn't understand that your kid is even struggling. Because if a teacher doesn't know how your kid feels, doesn't know your kid is loving and hating the class, then nothing can change from the teacher's perspective. Okay? The second person that your kid might blame is you. So my parents that are watching, you might be at fault and not even know it. And I can tell you that my mom is not the best teacher when it comes to math. Once we got to a certain subject, I believe it was Algebra 2, my mom was like, hey, I can't help you anymore. She used to always check my homework for me just because I wanted to get all of my points to be exactly correct and, get my 100%. So kids out there, maybe you're blaming your parents for not being good at this class or not understanding this because you think, well, if mom's not good at this, then I'm never going to be good at this. Or maybe parents out there, whether you realize it or not, you're telling your kid this class doesn't have to be taken. This class doesn't matter. So parents, you can be at fault, not realize it, but at the same time, kids can blame you unfairly. So I would encourage you to know the difference between praising and encouraging, which is something one of my speakers brings up this weekend at the replay weekend. I would also tell you parents, it's super important to have a relationship with your kid, even if it's just a quick little chat here or there, whether it's a open door policy, whatever it is, just know your kids might be blaming you for their grades because you're the problem. You're the reason it's not going well. And that isn't necessarily the case. That's not necessarily true. But maybe kids, that's what you feel like. And parents, you might need to somehow create that rapport with your own kids. And, I have speakers to help you with that. And that is possible by clicking the link in the description. Now, before I tell you the third and final person your kid might be blaming or should be blaming for his grades, I want to let you know we're streaming to Facebook and YouTube, so be sure you're a follower on Facebook and a subscriber on YouTube, and make sure your notifications are turned on so you know when I go live. So, the last person your kid might blame for his grades comes down to, this might be a surpriser, but himself or herself. So do know your kid is in charge of his grades, that your daughter is in charge of her grades, okay? So that is sometimes hard to accept, sometimes hard to swallow, and that's truly what it comes down to. Someone told me not too long ago for myself that I have a choice. I can either blame everyone else or I can blame myself and accept responsibility. So that is what your children need to do, is they need to go, okay, if I want a grade in this class, then I need to think about the things that I can do, the things that I can be, the way I can feel to make that class happen. Am I doing my homework? Am I taking the time to understand it? Am I seeking help when I need it? All of those things, all those actions your child can take that they need to take to get the grade they want. But then they also have to have the right attitude, because unfortunately if your kid has decided this math class is pointless, I hate this math class, well then that attitude is going to affect every single thing in that class. Okay? And I can tell you too, it's going to affect that relationship with that teacher. So remember, we talked about, is the teacher to blame? Well, maybe your kid is influencing that class, whether he realizes it or not. So, now that I've told you the three people your kid might be blaming, the teachers, you parents, or their parents, and then themselves, well, who's the most important? Well, I can tell you that, again, a lesson I had to learn recently is no matter if it's school, if it's work, or whatever, or even just life, that the only person you can control, the only actions you can control, the only thoughts you can control are yourself, okay, your own. So the most important thing for you to get from this video, if it's parents watching, for kids, students watching, do know you control yourself. So your kid needs to blame himself for that grade. Okay, it's up to him to stay stuck, to get help, to decide he can learn, to decide he's going to pass. If your kid has decided, I'm just never going to be good enough, he's never going to be good enough in that class. He's never going to get the grade he wants if he doesn't take the responsibility and do what he can to make it better. So guys, I appreciate you watching. Do know that it can be hard to accept the blame. Do know it can be hard to make that step into motivation, to decide to do some action, to change the way of thoughts. And that is why I have this replay weekend happening right now. So until tomorrow night, Sunday the 24th at 8 p.m. Central, all interviews are available to watch for free. All you gotta do to watch them, click the link in the description, sign up with your name and email, and I'll get you those links for those interviews. So, if your kid wants to be motivated, mom and dad, you want your children in middle school, high school, and college to be motivated to do well in class, to get their homework done, to even figure out how to be motivated, watch the interviews. So thanks so much, guys. See you soon. Have a great night, good weekend. See you at the interview series. Bye.